In this demonstration, our pulsee is in the prone position, which means they're lying face down on the table. So in order for them to feel comfortable, we put a towel, rest a towel just beside their head, and we do that by folding the towel into a wedge. So we do a couple of small folds and then take it down so you've got like a wedge coming up there like that. So we'll get Ariel onto the table. And I'll just get you to move up a little bit. It's good to have, them placed evenly on the table, and then we just sit that beside their head so their face isn't falling into the table. So we start this demonstration of the prone pulses again at the hips, with 2 flat hands either side of the hips, and then we're just again getting the body moving, getting down, bending your knee, and we're just moving the body back and forth. Remembering this is the larger rocks and they are slower. And then coming down into the smaller ones, which are quicker. So we move from here by putting one hand on the sacrum and the other hand roughly over the area where the heart is. And then this is called the sacral heart pulse. And it's not a big movement, just the smaller movement. So this sets us up now to do the basic spinal sequence. This is one of the few sequences that we have with the movements, and it pretty much has to be done as I'm showing you now. So we use the ear as an indicator of which side we're going to be working on. So this ear is facing up, so we're listening to this side of her body, and this is where we will start. So we start at the top, and we have both hands, and we're using the pisiform bone, which is the ridge that you have down here in your hand, and we're going to dig that in, and it's an in and away movement. So it's sort of down and across. And we're looking for the transverse processes, which they run down either side of the spine. And it's not on the spine, but just to the side of it. And you'll feel, as you move along the body, you'll feel that. So we come up, and we don't stay in one spot. We keep moving the hands the whole time, up and down the body. We go up, and then down. We go right down around the hip area, getting in, down into the coccyx bone, right down the bottom, and then back up to the top. And if there's a tight spot somewhere and you feel like you want to stay there, then we move up and down in that spot rather than staying there for any length of time and concentrating on that one area. So we can just, move around this area here, but moving your hands back and forth. And again, just using that pisiform bone to just dig in, sort of in and out. And you get that rocking action, and that's when you know you've got the movement right. So we do that for as long as we like, but for the purposes of the demonstration, We're not going to stay very long. And then we come back up to the top and we go into the small band pulses. So these are lightening your hands, having them together, starting at the top and moving your way down. And we just do this once, so we stay in each spot for a little bit of time. And we call these the band pulses because we have like imaginary bands that run across the body. So you say, that's one, that's the next one, that's the next one, and then down, right down. So we just a very gentle rocking, moving your body back and forth. And again, I've got one leg in front of the other. And then we, without actually lifting our hands, we just gently move them down the body to the next imaginary band. Just covering the whole area that you've just done. And going right down, covering that hip area. Then we bring the hands back into the sacral heart position. So one hand at the sacrum, quite a firm pressure there, not too hard, and the other hand around over the heart area. And again, as I said, not a big rock. It's a nice, gentle. You'll feel that the body will get up its own rhythm, and you just stick with that rhythm. So now that we've done this side of the body, so we're going to go around and do this arm and this side of the ribs. So we put one hand up here and keep the rock going as we move around the table. And then we're coming to the rib cage pulse. The rib cage shift, it's called. And so from here, just going to tuck in at the top of the ribs there, and we're just going to push gently on those ribs. Just again, a back and forth movement. It's not a huge movement, but you can get quite a bit of pressure there, sticking to the top of the ribs. And then into the smaller movements. It's more like a little bounce, that one. So now we're going to do the prone arm swing, elbow swing. So to do that, we're going to get our pulsee to turn her head so that we're not pulling her head, her face into the table as we do this movement. So we're just getting the arm just above the elbow, and it's really nice to just let it flop down off the table. So we just let it flop. And we're just holding the arm, supporting it, so you're not restricting the movement in the elbow. And we straighten our arms, leaning back, so that creates the traction along there. And then we move up and down. If you lose your grip, you just stop. Just put your hands back there and get your grip again. I've got one hand covering the other, as in that. And we bounce up and down. So we're using our knees and our body to bounce up and down rather than moving just the arm like this, you've really got to put your whole body into it. Making sure you always keep that traction on. And you just have the arm just lifted off the table there so it's not on the table. And then we do the side to side swing. So again, don't restrict the movement with your hands, but just let the arm from the elbow down swing back and forth. You're moving your body back and forth with the arm. And from here we go into the little ones. And it's just a smaller movement, the same thing you're doing, but a smaller movement. Making sure to keep that arm up off the table. And when you're ready, you just lower that back down onto the table. And then we lift the hand, the elbow and the wrist, and place the arm back down on the table. And back into the sacral heart position. And we now have the pulsee in the right position to do the other side of her back. Her ear is facing up, so we're listening to this side. So we start at the top, and again, just moving down, digging in and out. So it's an in and pushing out movement. Sometimes you might have to get up on your toes a bit to get into it. So usually we start off just by feeling where you are. And then as you get into the right position, you can go a little bit deeper with the pressure. And again, remembering not to stay in the one spot, but moving up and down the body. And we do the band pulses. So it's always starting at the top with the band pulses, lightening your hands off, and just the small, fast movements. Moving them down, not lifting them off the body. Just gently moving down to the next position as you rock. Covering the whole area that you've just done. And for you, you have one foot in front of the other, your knees slightly bent, moving back and forth. So I'm moving through this quite quickly. But in a session you would stay a lot longer at each spot. Coming back to the sacral heart. And then we come around the body again to do the other side of the arm and the rib cage. So we put one hand here, keep the rock going. Move around the body, We leave the face there because if we had her head turning the other way, we'd be pushing her face into the table. So it's getting your hands on those top ribs and just gently pushing down and across. And then into the little ones. Again, like I said, it's like a bouncing up and down for you. Then we'll do the other arm. And we'll get our pulsee to turn her head again. And again, just getting the arm. If their arm's already down, that's okay, just pick it up. But if it's up here, just bring it across and let it flop down. Getting the traction, so leaning back, arms straight. And then your up and down movement comes through your body, through bending your knees, and bouncing up and down. You can do a little bit of small movement as well there. And then into the swing. This is the prone arm swing. So, again, remembering not to restrict the movement at the elbow, so you've got the arm just above the elbow, hands cupped, and moving your body side to side. And going into the little ones. You can sort of bring your hands out a little bit there. Remembering, keep that arm up off the table. Not high up in the air, but just off the table so it's not rubbing. And when you're ready, lowering that down. Just picking the hand up, the elbow and the wrist, placing it back on the table, and then back into the sacral heart position. So from here we're going to go down to the feet. And we're going to do it exactly the same way we did in the supine, by walking our hands down the body. So we stop here at the pelvis. And then we walk our hands down the body, stopping at the thighs. Just above the knees and the calf muscles. Down at the shins, coming around the end of the table. So again, we're just doing the double foot pulse. And then we go into the double foot stretch, the prone double foot stretch. So again, just lifting the legs just above the ankles, so you've got a good grip. Leaning back, straightening your arms, and side to side movement. A larger movement, which is slower. If you lose your grip, just put the feet down and get a better grip. And then into the faster movements. It's important to keep the traction on here. And then we go into the up and down movements. And again, just coming up on your toes and bouncing up and down. And always back to the side movement before lowering the feet down onto the table. And then we're just going to finish off here at the feet. So it's nice when you're finishing off to just taper off slowly so that the pulse just keeps moving through the body. So go into the smaller movement. And we just slowly bring our hands off of the feet. Now we're going to ask our pulsee to turn over, because after you've been laying in this position for a while, the neck can get quite stiff. So we're going to ask Ariel to turn over on her back just for a minute. And we're going to finish at the head. So we just start again here at the head. The rested head pulse. And we're going to do the slow neck turns. So slow is the operative word here. So we're just going to slowly turn the head to each side. And we're just using this hand to move the head. And as we get further over there, we just slip this hand out so that the head can go right to the side. And then we slip it back down to move it now over to the other side. And it's good to just move your body with the head as you're doing it. So we slip that hand out so that the head can go all the way. And once it's gotten to the point where you think it's going to stop, just give it a little bit of a firm pressure with your hand and just take it that touch a little further. And bring that hand back into play, moving the head back over to the other side. And then we just go a little bit further. Very slowly. Taking that hand out so it doesn't restrict the movement. And then bringing it back to move the head to the other side. And we just, when you've finished doing enough of those, we go into the head pulse. And the other one we're going to do is the sandwich. So we're just going to put our hands, cupping the head, our heads resting on our hands with our fingers just sitting in that bone at the base of the skull. Not digging in, but just resting there. And this is called the rested head pulse. So you move back a bit. Get into a position so it's not hurting your back. Bent, my knees are bent. My arms are a little bit bent there. The head's just resting in my hands, and we're just moving our body, which sends the movement through their body. And that's a nice one to do after the cradle that I showed you in the last demonstration. So when you finish, you just slide your hands back out, keeping your body moving, and take your hands back to the position, the rested head position. And then to finish off, we're just going to lift the cap. So just again, bringing the fingers into play so that they're just putting a little bit of pressure on the head as you lift them slowly off while you're continuing the rocking in your body, coming straight off the head. So that is the end of that demonstration. That was the prone position. Pulses, and we turned over at the end just to finish off, and so that we give them a bit of relief in the neck if their neck has got a bit tight.